So, good evening, everyone. We're going to have an exciting panel here, I believe, and we're going to look at the issue of developing robust cyber infrastructures in the developing world, and so what does this mean? It means developing resilience under multi-level cyber conflict, and this is a characterization of what we see going on in the international system today, that states and other actors are achieving objectives through cyberspace along these various dimensions. So at the highest level, there's competition in the ideational sphere, which involves value systems, civilization, cultural systems. The political level, where there's political competition, ideologically based, confrontation, say if, political systems again. There's a criminality level of cybercrime operating around the world. It's a security level of intelligence competition, military competition, interaction with cyber, with military and military postures. Then there's an economic level. There's penetration of critical infrastructures, which we've seen in various countries. The US has been complaining lately about that problem, and potentially usable for coercion. There's been economic predation, where there's cyber-enabled espionage to steal intellectual property and trade secrets. And it goes back into the technology levels and the science and engineering levels. That's sort of the layout. And the challenge here is, what do you do about that in Africa? And so one idea is to have a comprehensive strategy for your country and how to approach these problems. But you need to look at it from your own local perspective. So the first thing you need is a threat model. Who are the bad actors? What do they want? And what are their capabilities? So once you know that, you can think about an architecture for security and resilience. So what are the important things I want to defend? How am I going to do it? And this is across sort of the nation state and different verticals, different critical infrastructures, the businesses, the government, the military, national security, and so forth. And then once you've done that, you're started on a strategy. Having a strategy is important because you can identify the critical actors that need to do something, and you can say why they need to do it and why it's them and not somebody else. So you can make the case, and then you need to incentivize them to do it. Once you've done this kind of analysis, there will be risk that remains, so residual risk. So this residual risk is in general handled by trying to deter those actors from engaging in those activities or joining an alliance, get somebody to help you deter them, and other kinds of deterrence architectures, and also leads into the cyber norms activities that we see in the UN, talking about different kinds of norms of responsible state behavior. So that's kind of the opener, and then we're going to turn to our panel, and we're going to ask them some questions to try to probe this issue with more relevance to the local context. And as I ask the first question, I'd like each panelist, as they speak, to introduce themselves. So the first question is, what cyber and information risks are specific to developing countries? And for that, we're going to go to Ghita. And if you would speak to that, please.
So I'm Ghita Mezzour. I'm a professor at the International University of Rabat here in Morocco. So I can talk about the situation here in Morocco. So Morocco is paying a lot of attention to cybersecurity. We have institutions, one mainly in the military. It's called the Direction Générale de la Sécurité des Systèmes d'Information. We have a CERT, and their goal is to help other institutions, both private and public, more public than private, improve their cybersecurity, mainly the institutions of vital importance. They're coaching them, they're training them. They also came with a Direction Nationale de la Sécurité des Systèmes d'Information, telling them norms or best practices of what they should do. There are also a lot of security professionals helping others in the private sector, helping these banks and other institutions improve their cybersecurity and doing also this mentoring. A lot of universities also have the cybersecurity either courses or either entire masters or programs to train the cybersecurity professionals for the next years. So this has improved the situation dramatically, but obviously it did not solve the situation. there is still a lot to do. One is this awareness issue. A lot of institutions see cybersecurity as a luxury. It's just something they need to do so that they're compliant with the norm. They don't really see the need for that. Like, they don't think it's important to do it because they have to do it, kind of. And still, the main institutions who are kind of paying attention are the banks and the financial institutions and what we call these institutions of vital importance. Again, I don't know, the LIDEC, which is like the water and all this vital importance. I would love to see all institutions pay attention to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is not just for banks, it's for everyone. So again, awareness. And also, we still have an issue of data sharing. So I was telling you about la Direction Nationale de la Sécurité des Systèmes d'Information. So this one is telling institutions that whenever they have a cybersecurity incident, they need to report it. Nowadays, institutions in Morocco don't report incidents and don't even report if they have a data breach. We don't have a law that tells them they have to do it, and there is still this taboo about, oh, if I'm hacked, I'm bad, so I don't talk about it. And that stops a lot of cybersecurity intelligence, because if you have data about what's going on, you can do a lot of things much better. So the data sharing in Morocco is still a huge issue. And even though the last point, I'm talking to the last point, even though universities are training professionals, we still have a huge shortage of cybersecurity talent. We need more trained cybersecurity professionals, but I think this is not only for us. I think this is a worldwide issue. And this is the last point I want to talk about.
Thanks, Ghita. Let's turn to John for the situation in Nigeria, and try to limit your remarks to about 3 minutes on this round.
Okay, I'm John Alhassan. I'm a lecturer at the Federal University of Technology, Minna. Nigeria is started on the issue of cybersecurity since early 2009. There was this awareness that our university wanted to start a program on it. But then the National University Commission didn't see the need for it, because they were saying, what kind of program is that, and what type of thing is that? But still, the university continued with the process. Not until 2015, the government came up with a cybersecurity policy for the nation, of course, which up to now, it has not been updated. So then, from that, 2010 up to now, the university have been training. And by 2017, the Nigeria University Commission see the need, and they were able to accept the proposal from the university to have a curriculum for cybersecurity as a course in the nation, so which was approved, and at least many of the universities now have started it as a course. So, but there are so many issues of risk on cybersecurity, especially in Nigeria case. You have so many things. There was an incident, a physician that left practicing and went to hacking in Lagos, and he made a lot of money until he was caught. So there was another incident. A lady opened an account, and somebody called her, can you send your card number and PIN number? There was a mistake. All of a sudden, her money was withdrawn from her account. So these and some pocket of issues on cybersecurity are going on. And from our discovery, not until now, that awareness is becoming more for the people of the people staying in the cities, because mainly those in the rural areas, there are many of them that have accounts, but they don't even have access to this information on how they can be phished, how their identity can be stolen, and things like that. So those issues are still there. So, but the risks are very much there for us as a nation, because the issue of cybersecurity is we have those ethical hackers. Of course, those are professionals that have been trained. We are very few as a nation that we have now. And there are also issues of many of the government, private sectors going on online. Of course, not having people that will serve as an ethical hacker for them to preserve their presence in the cyberspace. So all these are issues that are still existing. So, but I think one of the things that will help us as a continent, as Africa, is that we need to come together, maybe like Africa Union, to have a policy, a strategy on cybersecurity, on how this can also be disseminated to various nations in the continent. And not only that, improving awareness, creating more awareness. Maybe it could be in the mediums, in the televisions, radios, and also bringing up even people that are involved in, maybe actors can have films, can have programs that will create awareness for people on how they can be safe on the cyberspace. So that issue is very, very important. And again, the issue of training and retraining, of course, like you know, just like you are trying to get them not to hack you from your vulnerability, they are also there doing more research on how to hack you more. So this issue is also there. Training and retraining is also an issue that is very, very important if we want to be safe, if those risks can be reduced for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Let's turn to Gulshan now for the Indian view on the situation. How does that compare to what we've heard from the cases of Morocco and Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Gulshan. I was the National Cybersecurity Coordinator recently. Yeah. Before that I tell what we have done, let me tell the magnitude of the problem and the size of what issues we have there. India, as all of you know, is a very large country. We have the second largest internet users in the world, and we have almost crossed 600 million internet users there. We have more than 1 billion mobile phone connectivity there. In a country of a population of 1.3 billion, we have more than 1 billion numbers there. And 57% today are the smartphones there. And every smartphone which comes, it comes with the internet connectivity there. And we expect that the next billion of the internet users, India will play a lead role in paying, because we have to cover up the rest of the 600 million people and the things. This tells us the problems which we have. At the same time, India software export to the world itself has crossed $110 billion. So we need to take enough steps, and we realize the importance of the cybersecurity long back. We came out with a policy of the security policy in 2013. There are 5 components of that policy there. One was the legal framework. We put the Legal Information Technology Act 2000 in the year 2000 itself, later on revised, made it to address the issues which have come up subsequently. We have a national alert watch and system like Morocco. She said we have a separate computer emergency response team which looks into civilian and incidents there, and we have a dedicated CERT for the critical information infrastructure aspect there. Then the international cooperation, we have almost the memorandum of understanding relationship with every IT company of the world to work with the Indian CERTs there or Indian organization to address those incidents or pre-warn the kind of incident which happens there. And then we have retrofit the courses, the engineering courses, computer science courses in India to put at the undergraduate level, the security as one of the subject, and specialized 2-year program in the master level program in the security there. One more thing we have done is that we have also entered agreements with several countries with whom we exchange our information relating to cyber incidents, because these are all incidents which happens in one part of the world, it will happen in another part of the world, and it can go simultaneously at many other parts of the world. So we have agreement with the leading IT countries of the world, as well as every IT companies of the world has arrangement with us. One more thing we have done is that every ministry has been mandated to spend 1% of their annual budget for implementing the cyber security there, to implement the security practices there. Every organization, every body corporates is mandated by law to implement the best security practices, 27001 or any other, if they are collecting the personal data or any sensitive personal data and it has to be audited every year, or as and when they change or significantly add the entire hardware software. So we have integrated policy there, but our challenges are also becoming huge there. The number of incidents are also rising. The penetration has become very, very high. We have a challenge, and now we are looking at it, how do we integrate ourselves when you are having a paradigm shift in the technology, all kind of AI and ML and VR and 5G is coming up there, because we expect more incidents to happen, things there. So we need to, we are in the process of looking at once again, but a strong base, a sufficient base has been created in the country in the area of cybersecurity from where we can launch.
Thank you, Gulshan. Let's turn to Lydia. What's missing in what we've heard about so far, Lydia? If you could tell us briefly, and then we'll turn to the next issue.
Sure, I think I'll piggyback on the paradigm shift. I think that when we think about cyberspace and we think about global commons and we think about the economy together, there's also a paradigm shift in how we make money. And something that people don't think about sometimes is the use of social media to make money. And I want to use Instagram as an example. Many people don't think about Instagram as a store for them. One of my friends from the Emirates, she has a small business that sells evening gowns. And she doesn't have a website. She doesn't have a business that's registered or anything, but she has an Instagram account. And on that, she puts pictures of her dresses, and through the messaging inside, she takes orders. And so it's little things like this where people are putting out their ideas and they're trying to have their small businesses, and they're making money. They're making money for the country. It's tax-paying money and all that. And sometimes we don't think about social media as an infrastructure that helps economies. And so I would add that to the global commons of things that we need to think about that affect our economy and protect.
Thanks, Lydia. So one of the themes that's come up here is cybersecurity is a team sport and cooperation there. And another issue, I think, in a strategy is, what is the source of leverage? When you don't have infinite resources, then you need to be able to prioritize. So how can I get more done? So I have a set of these, but I'll turn to the group on what their thoughts are. Our next question is, what are the best approaches to develop a robust cyber security infrastructure in order to address these kinds of problems? So think about, who are the actors and what do they need to do, and how can I get leverage? And I'll just, as an example, a really important area of leverage is sharing of threat data, right? Signatures and so forth. Because if the faster that you can share that threat data, do the analysis for what the mitigation is, and deploy it, the less time the attacker has to use that exploit, and he goes back to doing R&D. So there's a multiplier there, which is improved by having more players. And we think about that in terms of international linkages. How can I cooperate, not just within the country, but with partners in the region or partners outside the region? Let's turn to, well, that's Gulshan. I think you're back again. Let's start with Gulshan and see what he...
Thank you very much. I think, as I said, the problem is day by day becoming very, very complex because of the kind of a explosion in technology or innovations, I would say, that what we are seeing it, we have not seen the last 30 years. So, and we still don't, understand how this will take place, shape place. So this making out a strategy at this point of a time is very, very important to address the challenges which will arise because of the technology implosion aspect there. Now, I'll tell you one thing I have seen during my course of tenure. I have been to many countries and I've interacted with many experts also there. I can tell you from my experience, and that's true with the Africa also there, if you look at the cybersecurity maturity kind of a curve there are basically 4 stages there: detection and the response, mitigation, and you plan it out strategy, how to do about it. Most of the time, what we have seen, and it's an Indian experience, that we have been able to reach only up to the first stage, that in a better manner, that is detection there. and response, it slightly gets little more complicated there. We all believe that by adding a firewall or adding the IPS or adding the antivirus kind of a software, we are secure. That is not going to be the scenario in time to come there. So we realizing this thing, we made it mandatory for any organization, be it private or a public, to report the incident to our CERT. That is a mandatory, and there is a punishment, criminal punishment also there. They don't report. Not every incident need to be reported, but certain type of incident need to be reported, which has the wider implication aspects on the things there. So I think the first important part strategy, we need to look at what kind of a risk, and we can learn risk only if the information is shared from the reported incident there, what kind of a risk are coming up either within the country or elsewhere in the world there. And we need to look at our strategies accordingly, how to address those kind of a risk there. And the first most important aspect is the sharing of the information, and the second is the capacity development. That's what the strategy we need to look at it. We look at the India, we need, as of 2018, we needed 1 million the skilled cybersecurity professional there. That's the kind of a size of the problem which we have there. We needed that kind of people there. So, I mean, we have roped in the private sector, we have roped in the educational institutions there, and we have started 6 weeks, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months courses in different areas, and the programmers, ultimately these are the programmers who are writing the software code. They will have to come and build security into the entire system there. I mean, you can't create a separate pool of the cybersecurity professionals there. That's what we need to do that. We had this, as a part of the strategy, we have said every organization, and it has been done to a large extent, there will be a separate chief information security officer who reports to the managing director or chairman of the company there. So the strategy aspect is important aspect, and small steps we keep on doing, and we are moving on, but the problems, as I said, are also becoming more and more complex there. By the time you take certain steps there, the technology innovation comes up and you get to do that. Particularly when the coming of AI and ML, it's going to be really a challenge aspect there.
So we have proliferating attack surfaces, and we have malicious actors getting better business models all the time. How do you look at this in Morocco, Ghita? Maybe in 2 minutes.
So in Morocco, I mean, the sharing of data is not working? Okay, it's working now. Okay, so the sharing of data is important, and I think the CERT has taken this approach of encouraging the institutions to share the data other than forcing them, because they know they are new, this is new, and they know that if they start by punishing people, people may get scared of them. So they're taking this approach of like, okay, let's see the benefit of this, let's say this is important, let's see this can help you, let me help you. And then as things get more mature, I think this legal punishment can play a role. But maybe in the beginning, I would agree that starting with the like legal punishments may not be the right way to go, because it may get this distrust relationship. So I think the legal punishment can come later, but in the beginning, building this trust relationship is very important. Right now, what institutions I talk to in Morocco are using, they are using this open source trade like OTX. This is open source databases for sharing threat intelligence around the world. They're also building, so Morocco also, I forgot to say that earlier, but Morocco also has established a lot of relationship with other countries, and even institutions has built a relationship with other institutions, like banks share relationship data with other banks. They also purchase threat intelligence databases. So they're doing things. So the legal punishment may come later. I'm not a big fan of like forcing people in the beginning.
No, I
Microphone, yeah.
I was the Director General of CERT for almost 7-8 years there. See, the whole aspect of the legislation aspect was done at the time. I was also part of that, did that. During my entire tenure, and so far after that also, I mean, my successor, not a single time we have used the impunity power, the power there. We have, you are absolutely right, we have also tried to build up a trust factor between the institutions there. But let us not forget also that it's a private sector is more and more playing a role there. Their all activities are getting more critical sector, more getting a private sector. And you need a law to get the information from them. You can't simply rely on the, in just persuading them to do that. But that is what should be done. We have never used it. But it's almost, you see, after all, God has given a teeth. We can bite also. I mean, we don't bite every time. We don't bite every time. But then the law should be there to address, because issues are becoming more and more important. And I must also say, gone are the days. Today, any incident which happens there, it doesn't happen singular to one institution. And it comes out in the public. And at times, it becomes the organizations which they don't report the incident because the entire society is at stake. They need to be handled accordingly.
So thanks, Gulshan. Let's turn to John on this question of approaches. 2 minutes, please.
Okay, I think Africa countries need to wake up to the call. Now we have IoT, AI coming up, IoT, Internet of Things. Developed countries are already into that, and we are trying to follow them, of course, because we import so many hardware and software, which to us pose a lot of vulnerability also. So there is a need for Africans to also wake up to the call and follow suit other developed countries by developing strategies that comprehensive cyber defense framework that will involve both legal framework in terms of training, in terms of government agencies, ministries, parastatals, all that will be involved. A team can be set up, committees can be set up, monitoring team can be set up, incident response centers can be set up, which I believe many African countries don't have that for now. So all these are the things that we need to do, because as we keep on using most of these smart devices, more of them will be coming. So we need to do more. Political will from the government also need to be there. Somebody just mentioned that the amount of budget allocated to research development is very small in Africa, and developed world, that's what they do. Most of their, they have a lot of allocation to research because they know what it means to them. So Africa also need to wake up to that. We need to put money into research. We need to encourage people. We need to be deliberate about it so that most of this risk will not be faced with their consequences. So there should be a robust cooperation within the African Union. There should be a committee that can be set up on cybersecurity, and there should be also at maybe regions, maybe western region, northern region, and eastern region of committees that will be able to monitor these things and see how they are being implemented in African countries, so that we can be able to meet up with the developed world. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Lydia, can you add something to what we've heard so far, briefly?
Yeah, in terms of information sharing and all that, I think in the US there's been quite a few developments over the past 10 years. One I like to highlight is the FBI InfraGuard, which is something that is across the nation, and it's meant to connect the FBI with the private sector so that there could be information sharing. And every state has their own chapter, and they're also trying to build trust between the FBI and the different private sector companies. So, and that's, I believe, worked well, and it's been improving, and they're constantly trying to make that better. There's a platform online where people can go in and see what different reports have come out, what new threats there are, and they can share with each other. So that's one good example.
So I think that's a great point. I mean, you know, I've noticed not a well-organized menu of capabilities for helping other countries in the United States. It turns out there's the certs, have all these courses and so forth, but you have to work very hard to find them. And so it'd be great to have a list. And if we think about expert to expert interactions, so you pick the sector, the financial guys or the power grid guys, to be able to get the lessons learned that occurred. I mean, that's probably a great point and would help move people up the learning curve in that they don't have to make the same mistakes. They can get those lessons learned. So our next question is, in light of, the situation, what kinds of capacity building is needed and what are the best approaches to do it? I think there's this team playing that we've brought up. How do you see this, Ghita?
So in cybersecurity, the main capacity you need is expertise, actually. I mean, you need to train people. I mean, even buying the best cybersecurity equipment will not protect you if you don't know how to use it, if you don't have the right procedures, if you don't have the right data sharing procedures, a lot of things. So you need to train people into what cybersecurity is. So other countries can, for example, help you with training, education. I think it's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 important things that need to be done to improve.
So human capital is number 1.
And 10.
Across the board, right?
Yes.
From the education through the college degrees and then operating in, say, security companies in different sectors, different verticals.
Yes.
And John, what are your thoughts?
Okay, I think the developed world also need to come to the aid of Africa by being deliberate about it. What I mean is that because the cyberspace is an ecosystem, if it touches us, it's a matter of time, it also touches them. So it's good as they are going, they should carry Africa along by providing maybe fund, training for capacity building, as she said, for institutions, for government, so that Africa can also be carried along on the issue of curbing the menace of the cybersecurity. So more awareness is also very, very important. There are people at the rural areas that don't know anything about the lack of access to the internet. And all these people, is a matter of time, they will also come on to the internet as development go on. So all these things also need to be carried to them to also create awareness, to also let them know what are the simple ways they can be affected on cybersecurity. I think if you can start from there, it will also go a long way. So creating more awareness, training, and again, political will from the government. African governments, they need to put more resources into cybersecurity. Just as he said, India, they have a certain percentage that goes to security for every ministry. I think that's a good example that African can copy so as to make the issue of, we should be able to take care of the issue of cybersecurity. And we also need experts in each of these ministries, government agencies, private sector. There should be, just like they have in India, there should be an expert on cybersecurity, on security in charge of that ministry, in charge of that organization, in charge of that, so that they will be able to monitor, they will be able to see what is going on in the issue of security of the organization or the government, parastatal, as the case may be. So we have a lot to do. We need to also wake up to that. And the developed countries also need to carry us along so that they will not also be affected. Thank you.
So Gulshan, India's got a tremendous IT sector and a lot of cybersecurity talent. Is India, at this point able to provide capacity building for other countries? Do you have programs like that you're doing? And what kind of assistance or teamwork would you see for other countries to help you with your concerns?
As I said, we realize that the right kind of people are necessary if you have to deal with in the area of cybersecurity, and the regular program should be there to expose them with the things. We require right kind of people for acquiring the technology. We require right kind of people for research and development. We require right kind of people for managing the kind of threats or analyzing threats there. So, and we have established, not that we are perfect there, we have established for last couple of years a good framework for skill development. and we will be very happy to share our expertise or train the in Africa or anywhere else. We need to do that. We have signed about a year ago, we had signed a memorandum of understanding in Morocco also, with the CERT to CERT cooperation they had signed. Of course, we didn't have a single meeting, which we do normally with other countries on a video. We do the meetings once in a month, and we try to share the incidents with the respective country, what kind of incident happened there. So that kind of a thing, I think we will be very happy to share with that. And one more thing, in our country, we do conduct the cyber mock drill every 3 months with every sector specific there. So, and we do the drill along with the US CERT also there and the GCHQ also there. So we will be very happy to share those expertise, share those kind of experiences there. And I mean, and we'll be also happy if any organization or the government in Africa, their countries in Africa, they also come and participate in our mock drill, because if you participate in the mock drill, it tells you how many gaps there, and that's the best way to train the people there. We should be, certainly we'll be very happy to do that, that aspect. The other thing which we will be very happy to do that, we have set up that, the Security Operations Center, we can extend our security operation under due NDAs, they are non-disclosure agreements kind of things, to monitor their incident. I mean, we can give the entire command, infrastructure can be there, and they can use the operation from their own countries, from their own respective cities. They can operate their Security Operations Center and look at the incident till the time they build up their own Security Operations Center, or we can help them to build up the Security Operations Center. I think some of those things we will be very happy to do that at the government level or industry level. We'll be very happy to share our experiences with them.
So that's great. Two things come to mind is that the World Bank in some projects has included cybersecurity components. So they provide some assistance, but it's not really focused on the problem. Some countries like the UK have been making an effort in this area, and they have the Cybersecurity Center at Capacity Building Center at Oxford. And if I look at Melissa Hathaway, who is a former cyber advisor in the White House, she has a cyber readiness index, sort of a checklist of things to see how you're doing, a sort of scorecard. And recently I was in the UK in a workshop that the Foreign Office was organizing, and they were mentioning the idea of a multilateral fund for supporting cyber capacity building, and that might actually be a useful thing that could help with some of these concerns.
Melissa Hathaway came to Morocco, and she made one index for the Moroccan institution based on that thing.
Maybe just very quick reactions, and then we'll open it up to audience questions on any of the topics that we've had. Just go down the line, 1 minute.
I think the cooperation among the countries, as you said in the opening remarks there, is the prerequisite if you want to address our challenges. The technology can improve the cybersecurity posture to the extent of 15 to 20%. Actually, it's the processes and the procedure which we need to commit to address our challenges. And I mean, we cannot change the technology so often there aspect there. But if we stick to auditing, if we stick to the processes and procedures, we can secure our infrastructure to a large extent there. I mean, if some bot is stepping there today, you put a terminal, a system on the internet there, immediate scanning comes up there, and someone installing a bot there to monitor it immediately goes into that. And you said in the opening remarks also, the dark web and darknet, the kind of things, bots are coming up there. So situation is becoming difficult. So processes, procedures are, in my view, in addition to the awareness and skill, is an important factor to prevent or to check the security issues, address the challenges.
Do you have a sort of comment you want to make on this?
Yes, one of the things I think I'd like to add is I agree with the capacity building measures and including all stakeholders and all that, but one thing I would like to add is having an agile mindset about what new components are coming in on the cyberspace environment and what new things we're going to have to protect. Basically, the threat landscape is growing. It's not just IoT, but we think about social media, but we also have augmented reality and virtual reality on the horizon. So I think we need to have an agile mindset about how the threatscape is going to grow, and that we need to think about new ways to work with new stakeholders and also create new types of norms and rules to mitigate that.
And over to John. Do you have just very brief thoughts that you want to put out?
Okay, just, of course, just to add, we again need, of course, just like discoveries are coming up from time to time, those of us in research, those in academic also need to be updating themselves because we are at the edge of passing this knowledge to others. So we need to know what are the new things that are coming up. So as they are also coming up, of course, this will also go a long way in helping to mitigate most of the attacks that may emerge from these new things.
Well, thanks. With that, we have a few minutes left, and let's open it up for audience questions if there's some questions. Anybody?
Thank you. So the topic is global commons, and what I heard so far is like most of the stuff is on the national initiatives. So what I would like to see is what prospects does the panel see in terms of the global cooperation on securing this cyberspace?
Anybody want to take that?
No, I said that the cooperation among the countries is important if you have to address the challenges there, because same attacks is happening at the same time in a number of places there. Now, I'll give a very clear example to you, the denial of service attacks there. See, anonymous hackers, there's a very common kind of a thing. All over the world, they are scattered and they come together to put a denial of service attack, distributed denial of service attacks there. And the attack strength, because they've all put together the resources, it goes. I have seen the cases of 500 gigabits, that kind of attacks is going on, things there. So the cooperation among the countries is far more important there. But I think we are practical scenario. All of us, when we sit down in such meetings or in seminar, we all talk about cooperations is fine. But actually, the cooperation, we need the cooperation. There is a reluctance on the part of the countries to share their experiences there. I'm telling you from my own experience there. We do every month the DVC, digital video kind of things with many of the certs worldwide, or you talk to the first, the Forum of Incident Response Teams or the AP certs that go there. They may talk about the incident, but when it comes to the cooperation to catch hold of the criminals or perpetrator, that is still, we need to achieve that. I think more trust will come up, more things will come up. The security agencies, she said, talked about the API and the way the CERT looks at it, at two different angles they look at it there. CERT cooperation is very good there, but when it comes to some criminal aspects, gets into every security breach will get a criminal aspect, then the problem starts there. So the issue of attribution of the incident there, that is a little more political and very sensitive issue. No country, every country wants to put some norms there, but the attribution issue becomes, when it comes, they start taking a different look at it. I think we need to evolve more there. The problem is that we take a lot of time to deal with the, create a trust level or come to the issues. By the time technology changes, new issues are coming up. The norms, I think someone gave a presentation, the UNGG, the last UNGG, we couldn't achieve a result, it failed there. UNG5, new UNGG has come up, and this time, you can see the international politics, this time it has never happened in the history of the United Nations there. There is a UNGG set up, meeting has yet to take place. Then there is an open-ended group there. The countries have been practically divided into two parts, one led by one bloc, other led by another bloc there. So I think this is because the inherent nature of the technologies, I mean, he said about the non-state actor, he started there. But actually, the state actors are also using the non-state actor in the front to that kind of a thing. So I think a lot of things, more trust has to come up, more work has to come up there. That is, there is no other way, because it is going to be a very, very difficult kind of a thing, challenge which we do. Today, I mean, the data is leaked out. The countries have a priority only to protect the data of their own citizens. They don't have a priority to protect the data of the other citizens there. I think a lot more work needs to take place, and more we look at with the open mind and trust. We should be able to do that. Otherwise, it will be going to be an issue.
Thank you, Gulshan. My organizers are telling me we're out of time. I just make one closing comment. In the U.S. and in the like-minded, we've been hearing a discussion about cooperative cyber defense. And when we think of capacity building and a fund to help support this, at the same time we hear about cyber norms and states are violating them. So I think it would be interesting to consider the issue of a cooperative relationship, sort of whatever you want to call an alliance, cyber alliance, to support capacity building, help countries address the problems. And what they need to do, however, is be a responsible state, to adhere to the norms of responsible state behavior. So instead of the sort of what we've been hearing from some countries that will identify the adversary and we will take countermeasures against the adversary, have a positive story which says that we'll include you in our cyber defense cooperation alliance in order to help you address your problems and to keep you at pace with current developments.